Welcome to the Black Moon Lilith Rising podcast. My name is Adama Sesay, professional astrologer, creator of LilithAstrology.com, and the author of Black Moon Lilith Rising, How to Unlock the Power of the Dark Divine Feminine Through Astrology, and the creator of the Black Moon Lilith Cosmic Alchemy Oracle. This podcast is your sacred space to reclaim the transformative power of astrology, the dark feminine, mysticism, and shadow work. While my insights and philosophies are shaped through my lens and experience as a Black woman, everything I share here is to empower everyone. Intersectionality teaches us that once we end the oppression for the most marginalized, it improves society for everyone. So today we have a very special episode. We are stepping into one of the most electrifying planetary transits of our lifetime, Uranus in Gemini. So this is more than just a planetary shift. It is the dawn of a collective revolution in how we think, speak, connect, and rebel against systems. Uranus is the great awakener in astrology and the cosmic disruptor. And Uranus will move through Gemini over the next 7 years, shaking up everything related to global and US conflict, communication, media, intellectual thought, technology, education, social systems, and surveillance. We're talking about the rise of radical new ideas, the collapse of outdated narratives, and the collective reprogramming of what the truth even means. So in this episode, I'll break down what Uranus in Gemini means for the world and the United States at large, politically, culturally, spiritually, and economically, and we'll explore how this transit will impact technology, media, and the collective psyche, and why it's important to liberate your mind from old conditioning during this transit. I'll then guide you through horoscopes for each of the 12 zodiac signs so you can understand where Uranus is inviting you to rebel, innovate, and evolve. Whether you're feeling excited or uneasy about the changes ahead, remember, this energy isn't here to punish you. It's here to liberate you and set you free. So stay with me to the end, where I'll share insights about what each of the signs will feel during this transit, who's primed to channel their inner revolutionary the most, how to work with the shadow side of Uranus, and how you can not lose your center over the next 7 years. So let's rise together and embrace the electric liberation of Uranus in Gemini. Uranus takes 84 years to move through the zodiac and spends around 7 years in each zodiac sign. Uranus is a generational planet, and this is why Uranus transits are often used to define generational, societal, and global shifts. So let's talk a little bit about Uranus as an archetype. Uranus, or Uranus, was the ancient Greek god who personified the sky. So this is harking back to the ancient sky god. We can even compare this to some of the ancient primordial sky gods that we had prior to what we know as the modern day god. Uranus was born from Gaia, Mother Earth. So the Earth is Uranus's mother. And like these myths sometimes tend to have, he became her consort. So this is like giving Game of Thrones, right, guys? But yes, Uranus was born from the Earth and then became her consort. And together they created the Titans, the Cyclopses, and the Hectonchieres. Forgive my pronunciation of these different creatures. But basically, they created some of the creatures that were in these ancient myths. But Uranus feared and despised some of his children, imprisoning them deep inside Gaia. In pain and anger, Gaia plotted with her youngest son, Titan, Kronos, who also happens to be Saturn. Yeah, Saturn is Uranus's son. Really interesting, huh? So when Uranus decided to lie with her, Kronos, Saturn, ambushed him and chopped off a body part that he has with a sickle. I'm gonna make that a little PG. But as you all can imagine, what happened to Uranus. So Uranus was, and across cultures, the Sky Father is the vast generative principle that embraces the earth. So Uranus stands out for violent overthrow, but the core image, sky and earth, birth and creation, then being separated, is the theme within this myth. So I always go over the mythology when we're talking about a planet or a zodiac sign in astrology, because it gives us more of an idea of what you are going to experience during a transit like this. So when we think about Uranus as a symbol, some themes are rebellion against tyranny. So the children overthrowing a sky father who suppresses their potential. Then the breaking cycles of oppression. So Uranus's downfall sets the stage for Saturn's reign, I mentioned, and eventually Zeus's. And when you think about Saturn, Saturn is also that generational trauma of oppression through abuse of authority, especially with the father. And Saturn tried to do the same thing to his children, and Zeus was one of his children, and Zeus escaped. And we all know Zeus is correlated with Jupiter, luck and abundance in the chart. But you can see here on down the line how there are these cycles of oppression that each of these gods needs to break. So that's why we align Uranus with the destructor of those cycles of oppression. Liberation of hidden power. So imprisoned creative forces are freed, and cosmic generational change. So each Uranus generation replaces the old order. So Uranus in astrology carries these mythic resonances. So sudden upheaval, liberation from old structures, rebellion and revolution, shocking awakenings, the spark of innovation that challenges oppressive systems. And whatever sign that Uranus is operating in, it will take on that persona. Uranus will take on that persona. So let's think about Gemini. Gemini is an air sign. This is mutable air. So it's really about bouncing ideas, thought, communication, expression. Their symbol is the twin. So that's why there is that duality with Gemini. And when we are applying this to the system, to society, we can see this happening with the media and how we communicate. There is a big backlash against freedom of speech right now. Mass surveillance with companies like Palantir coming to the forefront. Gemini is all about information. I mean, why do you think Geminis are known as the gossip? So when we have Uranus and Gemini, there is going to be a revolution in that. So everyone's going to know the tea. You can see that most recently, I'm sure you all saw this on TikTok, but that Coldplay concert affair that went viral, that's very much Uranus and Gemini. Your tea is going to be on the internet because you are being watched at all times through these social networks and through state surveillance. So that is going to increase during this time as well because Uranus is in Gemini. So Uranus entered Gemini for the first time this year on July 7th, 2025. And so we are now in Uranus in Gemini. And I do want to say that it's not for good right now. Uranus doesn't move for good until 2026. So Uranus will retrograde back September 6, 2025. And then Uranus will move back into Taurus for the last time. This is our final stay at the 29th degree of Uranus in Taurus on November 8th, 2025. And then Uranus stations direct in Taurus on February 4th, 2026. And Uranus re-enters Gemini on April 26th, 2026. And that is when we will experience this transit for good. So these slower moving outer planets take a little bit more time ingressing into in and out different signs. So this is why when we had Pluto and Aquarius transition, 2023 is when we first experienced Pluto moving into Aquarius and it moved back into Capricorn, back and forth. And then now finally we are in this full time. And so this is also a big part of the great transmutation as well. into signs of fire and air during this era. So we have exited earth and water, where Pluto was in Capricorn. We experienced Saturn in Capricorn, Pluto conjunction in 2020. We had a lot of these outer planets in earth and water signs. So now we have moved into way more of an active generation, like active with speech, action, and innovation. These are the masculine elements. So now everything is going to be expressed outwardly that we have been building up to over the past 100 years. So Uranus in Gemini will last until 2032, 2033, and will retrograde in and out during those initial years. And full entry is going to be expected 2026, as I mentioned. And the last time we had this cycle was August 1941 to 1949. So we were in the thick of World War II. So let's get into some historical events from back then. Let's discuss the mundane and political astrology behind the Uranus in Gemini transit. So in mundane, also called political astrology, mundane doesn't mean boring in astrology. It actually means the world. The root of mundane is mundus, which means the world in Latin. And basically, this is astrology of the collective, of global governments, systems, notable people, historical events, major events. We take a look at this, monarchies, all of that stuff. So we have to take a look at the previous cycles so that we can learn what happened then and use it to navigate the times we are in now. So here are some important US and historical events during the last time Uranus was in Gemini. So 1941, Pearl Harbor was attacked. So Japan attacks the US, leading to America's entry into World War II. So that's when Uranus first moved into Gemini. Another really harrowing event is the Holocaust escalating with mass deportations to concentration camps. That started to escalate as well in 1941. And Germany invaded the Soviet Union that year, and the Atlantic Charter was signed by Roosevelt and Churchill, which set the foundation for the UN. And I actually want to share a couple of videos with you all because conveniently, just this past couple of weeks, I visited Nuremberg for just some family reasons. And while I was there, I saw basically the Declaration of Human Rights, because Nuremberg was the city that these trials took place, the Nuremberg trials, and also Hitler was headquartered here, and this was a very big and important city during World War II. So I want to share some video of the memorial. So you can see here in German, it's basically like Declaration of Human Rights. And show you guys these two. So this is basically like all the human rights. And we can pause here and see some of them. So all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. I believe that too. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration. Right to life, liberty, and security of person. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited. So it looks like each city gave some of these rights. So you can see France gave these rights. No one shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. Right to recognition everywhere as a person above the law. So you can see here all of these rights that should be given to everyone. And this was the place, literally around this time, that human rights were very much debated. And this is not just in Europe, but this was happening across the world. This was a world war. So, like I said about communication, you can see there was a lot of treaties, there was a lot of negotiation, there was a lot of communication, and there was also a rise in the change in technology and warfare because the atomic bomb. And we can see what happened present day with the US and Israel and Iran. This is all about nuclear power. So nuclear power started to be wielded and used around that time. So like I said, with advances in technology. Yeah. So 1942, so the Manhattan Project begins. So the US starts developing the atomic bomb on their end. So that's 1942. And this is also the year that Japanese Americans were sent to internment camps. So we can see what's going on right now and what happened back then. So it was happening in America as well. Yeah, the Holocaust was a bit different, but this was a major stain on American history that Japanese Americans were treated this way because of the war, because of the violence that's occurring. So we can see some parallels to what's happening now with that whole Middle East conflict. I don't want to get suppressed here, so I think you all know what I'm talking about. But there's some parallels to modern day with the Japanese Americans being in the internment camps. So then this is also another really horrible event. The final solution, which was the deliberate plan for the Holocaust, was formalized in 1942 as well. And so that continued the escalation. In 1943, we had the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. So this was the resistance, one of the few ways that they were able to try to resist what was happening to them. So this is the oppression part and the battling through oppression and breaking through old oppressive structures. So we have that theme coming back up again. Italy surrenders during 1943. And then we actually had the Tehran conference held in Tehran, Iran. Very interesting, right, everyone? So they actually met to coordinate war strategy, the US, UK, and Russia, to basically defeat the Axis powers. So in 44, there was D-Day. So this is a very significant battle that happened in World War II. So the Allies landed in Normandy. We all know the movie Saving Private Ryan. And there was other battles that year as well. The IMF and the World Bank was actually established during this year. You can see a lot of these treaties were established during this time because of this major conflict. And a lot of these organizations that are really supposed to encourage countries to talk and negotiate instead of just like going towards war. A lot of that was established then, and we can see them under threat right now. So in 1945, this is like a very, very intense year and violent year. So we've got Hitler committing suicide, 1945. So it's like now the war is coming to a close, but it's still very much violent, and they surrender as well because of this. Then the US drops the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then Japan surrenders. The United Nations was founded, and then the Nuremberg trials begin in 1945. So this was the persecution of the Nazi war criminals. And so you can see here, basically, I mean, the US, the Allies they were like, we're gonna blow you into the next lifetime, which it's like, basically, It's like, yeah, like that is what ends things. So it's important to remember that with Uranus and Gemini is that it got past conversation. And unfortunately, it led to just mass extinction events and violence. So let's hope that things don't get to that point, but very much there's some of the same intense movement with what we are experiencing with these conflicts in present day. So let's keep our eye on these, but it's important to know that those major acts of war happened last time Uranus was in Gemini. And another reason why this is big, this is always like big for the United States, even though this was actually a global war and it's going to affect all of us. But most specifically for the United States, if we look at the Sibley chart, which a number of astrologers use, this puts Uranus in the 7th house. So this is open enemies, and this is like negotiation. This is contracts, relationships, business partnerships. So when Uranus gets there for the United States, it leads to conflict. The US doesn't want to talk. The US wants to react when Uranus is in its 7th house, and it happens every 84 years. So we're a new country. So the first meeting of the UN was the year after, 1946, and then the Cold War rhetoric begins around that time. So this is the anti-communist, the Iron Curtain, and the Nuremberg trials continue. And what was really interesting that I found was the Philippines actually gained independence from the US during that time. And also, so this is now going into some of the technology outside of war. The first general purpose electronic computer becomes operational. So the ENIAC is the electronic numerical integrator and computer. It was like that huge computer that was in 1946 as well. Gemini rules over communication, computation. So this was a big step in the innovation of computers and technology and how we communicate with one another. We're going to be seeing that now, especially with state surveillance, the information, the knowledge that they have on everyone, and how that can also be used in war. So we may see more wars with data, hacking, information wars, instead of just violence and blowing things up. It can also mean really affecting the internal systems, the computer systems of nations. So that's something super important to look out for during this transit. I mean, even just before I got on, I saw there was like today some AI scam that they're sending around to Gmail users, like 1.5 billion people. That's a lot of people. That is Uranus in Gemini. So definitely be aware of violence through fraud, communication, fraud, gossip, and knowledge being used against people. Yeah. Witch hunts based on the information. It's going to be big. So in 1947, the Truman Doctrine was announced. So this is the pledge to end and contain communism. And India and Pakistan gained independence from Britain. So this also created some mass displacement and violence. But we can see some of these countries breaking away from colonial powers during this transit. So we may see this some more because there are still countries controlling other countries. The Roswell incident, we've been having a lot going on with supposed UFOs, even in Uranus and Taurus. So get ready for that to increase. Conspiracy theories around aliens and space increases the gossip around it. Hollywood blacklist begins. So remember, guys, like they had the Red Scare, anti-communist witch hunts. So certain people saying certain things, which we are seeing with certain conflicts and wars going on right now. Depending on which side you're on, there's a witch hunt against that. So we can see some parallels to now. And then the CIA was established. So remember what I said about surveillance increasing. That was like back then. times that by a million right now with companies like Palantir, even Facebook, Meta, Google, now TikTok, I think, is being bought. We are going to see more of an increase of this surveillance. So the CIA was formally established, and this is following the passage of the National Security Act. So increase in surveillance during this time and paranoia. Then in 1948, so basically the US created an initiative to rebuild Western Europe after World War II. So I guess the US wanted to fix what they had destroyed. So that began, and then this is like even more like the communism versus democracy conflict back then. We have that going on now with 3 Abrahamic religions, with Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They're all fighting and wanting to reassert what they believe. So back then, this was also the Berlin blockade. So this is the separation between democracy or the republics and communism. So think about that. And then also, Israel declares independence in 1948 following the war. And then we have the first Arab-Israeli war as a result. Yeah. So right now we are in the Uranus return of the creation of Israel. So it's aligning, right, guys? Like, it's really aligning. So basically, yeah, there was a British mandate over Palestine, and that ended. And so it was given after the war. And then we had the creation of the state of Israel. And that is also what Palestinians refer to as the Nakba, which is catastrophe. So basically, there was the Arab-Israeli war, and it was very challenging for the people who were already there. Yeah. So that occurred. And then the WHO, World Health Organization, was founded. And then the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted in 1948. So that was the video I showed all of you guys. Gandhi was assassinated that year, and he was an activist who, not just an activist, the activist that fought for India's rights against the British. So this was actually a Hindu fanatic. It said who killed him, but yeah. Who killed MLK? We won't know. Right. Conspiracy theories. So in 1949, NATO was founded. So the North American Treaty Organization, and then the Soviet Union tests the atomic bomb. So this is the beginning of the nuclear arms race. So that's what I'm saying, folks. I think not only are we going to have that more and more of a battle to keep other countries in check, but also a race in technology, AI, robotics, nuclear power, nuclear activators, using nuclear power. We're going to need that to run these AI platforms. So there's going to be a different kind of nuclear race that is coming up. But that is what this was happening back then. And then the People's Republic of China was established. China is still very much a big part of the conversation right now. And Chairman Mao takes over around that time as well. Then we have so Germany becomes a republic. There's West and East division. And Ireland actually also left the British Commonwealth around that time and declared themselves a republic. So you can see here all these themes of people leaving the British Commonwealth and these old structures of power. These old, or the Communist Party taking power, nuclear arms race, countries taking their power back. Like, okay, I'm not just under the thumb of the West and Britain anymore. I'm going to get some bombs for myself. Y'all want to drop some bombs? Well, I'm going to have some to protect me too. So that's why it's just like one-upping each other, which can be very scary. So the first nonstop flight around the world also was completed during the last year of Uranus in Gemini. So like I mentioned, Gemini is an air sign. So I think by the end of this Uranus and Gemini cycle, we're going to have like flying cars. Like being able to fly or being able to travel is going to be maximized so much more. They're going to be using air to propel us from place to place. So if back then they were able to complete the first flight nonstop around the world, now we're going to be one-upping that. So basically you can like get in your car, whatever, and whoop, like Jetsons. So I think that's really exciting as well too. So that is the final year of the last time Uranus was in Gemini. And what's interesting is when we're at the end of Uranus in Gemini, that's 29 degrees. It's interesting how the first nonstop flight was completed because 29 as a part of that sign is the end, it's completion. So it's like that last final completion of the energy of that cycle. And as Gemini is an air sign, it's like travel by air was revolutionized. So now let's go over some of the themes for Uranus and Gemini right now. So from 2025 to 2032, what is the collective shift? So technological revolutions in AI, neural interfaces, quantum computing, facial recognition, surveillance, mass surveillance, understanding and collecting data and information on everyone. Yeah, it's already happening. Media breakdown and reinvention. So Gemini rules over the media, writing, communication, journalism. So this is the end of old media and the rise of decentralized communication. So not only is there going to be more regulation of the current media, the current larger conglomerates, you can see this already with the firing of a lot of different major media personalities on major networks. But now these folks they're not going to suddenly lose their talent. They're going to take it to places where they can speak the truth and speak authentically. That's Uranus. Uranus wants to be authentic, wants to uncover the truth, and wants to destroy old systems that are preventing this. So the rise of getting out of more of this centralized network and into your own ecosystem amongst a bunch of other ecosystems. So I definitely think if you are in communications, you're in media, if you're in writing, any of these Gemini ruled fields, to definitely start to evolve with the times. I know that we can sit here and say like AI is terrible and all of these things, but we also need to adapt because things are going to change. You don't want to be left behind as well. And you want to also change up your approach. So also starting your own ecosystem, like a newsletter or blog, or going back to having your own place on the internet versus just being on TikTok or Instagram, using those as more of a platform to gain new people into your message. So change up what you want to do if you are in media, because Uranus and Gemini is definitely coming for your industry. And then digital truth versus propaganda. So Gemini rules information. So Uranus is coming to disrupt the truth. So it's like seeing what's AI and what's not. What is a narrative and what is actually the truth? Getting all sides of the story. So that's going to be a big conflict, is what's the truth, what's propaganda, because of some of these technologies like AI. Rebellion of the youth in communication. So younger generations radicalizing communication and ideologies. I think there's going to also be a radicalization in education. Gemini rules childhood education. So that is going to change completely. And even when we had World War II, there was the baby boom that came around that time and started. So we may start to see it, though, in the other direction, that people are using technology to spread different types of messages, and people may feel like they need to focus on the world and what is going on versus baby booms. So that's going to be a big change. So rapid language evolution. So we already see this since the internet became a thing, but memes, even the word meme is a new word, symbols, AI languages, quantum code, a lot of this is going to change. There's going to be even more different types of words and new symbols entered into the global language. So Uranus in Gemini was aligned with war and peace treaties, the duality of Gemini, communication, negotiation, nuclear innovation, and existential threats. That's the work of Uranus, and the explosiveness and shocking events and violence that Uranus can trigger. Global ideological split, so democracy versus fascism. See that right now. Revolutionary technology, computers, nuclear power, radar, are flying around the world nonstop, and the new mass surveillance and media structures, mass migrations, and cultural upheaval. So that is another part of Uranus in Gemini, is more people having to migrate or change homes because of, it could be weather, it could be violence, it could be conflict, but people are going to be moving and migrating as well from their locality, from where they're from. Gemini also rules over your local surroundings and your local community. So when Uranus is there, it can change some of that. So here are some forecasts of what I think is coming. So education revolutions, mentioned that, but DIY learning, decentralized schooling, AI teachers, really changing the structure. We saw in the United States, the education system was completely, the Department of Education, completely disbanded. So that is going to need to be replaced with something. A lot more homeschooling as well. The rise of thought-based crimes, so surveillance of speech, freedom versus censorship wars, fraud, computer hacking, viruses. So you need to be on your A game with thinking everything is a scam that's coming into your inbox and into your messages during Uranus and Gemini. Transportation innovation, so flying vehicles, teleportation research, high-speed travel, needing to move away from these gas cars and into something that is more aligned, the rise of nuclear power as well with technology and transportation. Global alliances shifting, so binary rules challenged, and the polarity is going to kind of, one has to win. They can't both stay and continue in this fight. And you can see back then that democracy ended up bullying its way to winning and crushing fascism the last time. So, and then the echoes of the World War II uranium age, nuclear policy, global alliances, weaponized information, weaponizing data, weaponizing nuclear power. So what are some of the positive aspects of Uranus and Gemini? Because, you know, we can talk about the explosive of it, but we also want to use this transit to our advantage. So revolutions in communication. So breakthroughs on how we share ideas, more decentralized media, open source knowledge, and more authentic dialogue, more revolutionary dialogue that's going against the oppression through oppressing freedom of speech. Technological innovation, quantum computing, AI evolution, and radical advances in learning tools that democratize education. So we could see not college becoming archaic, but less people relying on the traditional education system to make money and make a living for themselves. Intellectual liberation, so collective awakening from a state of belief systems and inherited dogma. So even though what we may feel like we are being oppressed, through this oppression, people are waking up and questioning everything, thinking for themselves and taking their power back through their communication as well. Community connection, new social networks and collaborative communities based on shared values rather than geography. So we can see some new social networks coming up over the next 7 years. I definitely think so. Something to replace some of these networks that have gotten just so full of themselves and all about themselves and what they're making and what money they're making versus the collective, and actually being a place to foster that connection, and also championing the creators who move that whole network along. Youth empowerment, a surge of young voices leading cultural and political change with fresh and innovative perspectives also is coming. And the people who are born under this Uranus in Gemini transit are going to be very outspoken people. So this is going to be a whole new generation. They're now starting to be born. So we will also see how that's going to play out as time moves on. The language evolution, creative new forms of language, symbols, and artistic expression to bridge diverse cultures is going to be major. And we can really see that with like internet speak, certain lingo, and it really does bridge cultures and teaches us about one another. So here's some of the shadow side. Misinformation, biological and technological warfare through the air, Wi-Fi, hacking, damage to grid systems as retaliation. Not too fun. Split realities. Remember I said about Gemini being split personality. We've got the twins, that duality. So people living entirely different truth bubbles than what the outside world is thinking. So people who only consume this bubble of content and this bubble of truth believe certain things while everyone else is on something else. So that can also create conflict and information being suppressed as well. So certain people knowing one thing as truth and other people like confused and believing it to not be true. Neurodivergence becoming not just more widely accepted, but more people talking about it and normalizing it. But we can see that in our current health system, it is still demonized by the governments at the same time. So I think you're going to see some people really speaking up and fighting for the rights of people who are neurodivergent. And I say this, Uranus and Gemini can represent that. Emotional bypassing through intellectualization. And this can happen in your own individual life and dealing with some of the shadow around that. Silenced voices becoming narrative. So people who are marginalized or feel like they have not had freedom of speech will start to speak out more. And women, non-binary, queer thought leaders emerging as disruptors, using communication to disrupt the system. And then we've got the tricksters, we got the liars, we got the gossip, where they will start to receive some karma and a reckoning. We can see a certain president going through that as well. And guess what he has in his chart? He has Uranus and Gemini. So, and he's a Gemini sun. Yes, he is a Gemini, honey. So we're seeing more and more of this being exposed during Uranus and Gemini. And Uranus and Gemini, we have to remember, is trine Pluto in Aquarius. So this is why we're going to see these tricksters being revealed. And this is going to be through true information. So that'll be really interesting to see. Thank you so much for tuning into the Black Moon Lilith Rising podcast. I just wanted to take a quick pause to fill you in on what's new at LilithAstrology.com. So first, my calendar is open for live video readings with me. Remember, this podcast episode isn't for your individual chart. If you're curious about how the astrology of 2025 will impact your life, don't miss a chance to book a live one-on-one reading with me at LilithAstrology.com. I also just launched a new pre-recorded reading called Burning Question Tarot at a special price. This powerful 15-minute pre-recorded tarot and oracle card reading delivers deep insight into the burning question that keeps you up at night. Submit your question and intention, then receive a direct download and channeled message from the cards, recorded just for you by me. Perfect for love, career, spiritual guidance, or any situation where you crave clarity. This new reading, along with my live Zoom readings, are now available. I also wanted to announce my workshop, Shadow Work with Lilith, only on Heal Your Life Plus from Hay House. This new video workshop is now streaming on the Heal Your Life Plus app, and you can discover Black Moon Lilith as a powerful archetype in your natal chart and learn how to uncover the unseen aspects of yourself that may be holding you back. I'll guide you through each zodiac sign, offer personalized shadow work practices, journaling prompts, and card readings to help you embrace greater self-empowerment and turn your shadow into your superpower. Be sure to download the accompanying PDF with instructions on how to find your Black Moon Lilith placement. So if you start today, you will receive a free 7-day trial and gain instant access not only to this workshop, but also hundreds of other top Hay House authors in spirituality, healing, astrology, and more. So you can find this by clicking the links in my show notes to explore readings and access this incredible offer. Thank you so much for your support, and let's rise above the noise of Uranus in Gemini together. Now let's go over each of the 12 zodiac signs and find out what's in store over this 7-year Uranus in Gemini transit. And it is the most accurate if you listen to your rising sign. So of course, this requires you to know your birth time. You can look up your rising sign using a free birth chart calculator online, and you just enter in the date, your location of birth, and the time you were born, and that will give you your rising sign. And if you don't know your birth time, you can just go by your sun sign and read that. And that is dependent on the month and day that you were born. Also, you can book a reading with me. My calendar is now open and I can walk you through your chart, including your rising sign. Now, let's get into what's in store for each of the 12 zodiac signs. Aries, rising, and sun. This Uranus in Gemini transit is activating your third house of communication. So the theme for you is radical new voice. So you can expect shocking change in how you communicate, think, share ideas with others. Siblings, tech, writing, and short travels are charged with that electric lightning that Uranus is known for. So around this 7-year period, you could start a new writing venture. You could start a new podcast, start to speak your truth, say what's never been said, completely revolutionize the way that you've been communicating with others. This also can bring conflict and tension that can transform into change. So that is the area of life that is up for you over the next 7 years, Aries. Taurus rising and sun. Uranus in Gemini is impacting your second house of money, earned income, talents, and self-worth. So this is all about disrupting your values. During Uranus in Gemini, your money mindset and self-worth are going through a major change, and you are breaking free from the thought patterns that you once allowed to limit you. You can start to invest in unconventional income sources like cryptocurrency, or you may develop some radical self-esteem when it comes to how you command your money, your finances, and your self-worth, and how much people should pay you for your talents. And some of you can completely revolutionize and change how you are earning money. What you are doing creatively to earn money is going to completely change over the next 7 years. And some of you may go into careers that from the outside looking in may not seem as stable, but they are more fulfilling and authentic to you. For Gemini rising and sun, this is activating your first house of self and identity. This is also activating Gemini suns. So this is a 7-year identity upgrade for you, Gemini. This is your revolution. Uranus in your sign awakens your mind, your appearance, relationships, how you show up in the world, your purpose. And you may shock people with this change, but it's your job to be that mirror to the outside world and completely change things in your life that are no longer in alignment with you. Maybe something that has been in your life for so long, you don't feel like it's going to change, and it suddenly does. And this definitely has to do with how you show up. You could want to dye your hair differently. You can want to change how you look, your appearance. You can focus more on who you are and finding yourself. And 7 years, you are going to go through a major transformation. And honestly, Gemini, this is going to affect your sign the most. So you're here for a once in a lifetime experience. Cancer rising and sun, Uranus will be in your 12th house of the subconscious, ancestral inheritances, and hidden enemies. So this is all about spiritual disobedience for you. So you can find out some truthful information about hidden enemies, people who you thought were on your team, on your side. Some of you are going to completely revolutionize your ancestral line. This is a major cycle of breaking ancestral curses for you, Cancer. And also there can be some interesting information that comes out around your ancestral inheritance as well during the 7-year transit. But this is going to be a awakening of your intuition and insights from your dreams. Old karma, old ancestral narratives, hidden beliefs are going to be going through a psychic purge. So this is not a breakdown, my Cancer risings, but this is a major psychic purge of everything that is so old and old patterns and old villains that are in your life to now be released. So this is a major transit of purging for you, Cancer. Leo rising and sun. Your groups, friends, and your networks are up for a major revolution. So the theme for you is revolutionary community. So who you align with, your social capital, your communities are going to evolve during Uranus in Gemini. So people that you thought you were aligned with, thought were a part of your community, a part of your tribe, are going to fall away so that it can make space for a tribe that is more authentic to you. So you may outgrow friendships, outgrow communities, and magnetize new ones that are in your truth. Some of you also could see a rise of your social media presence, if that's something that you do. If you are sharing a creative idea or a vision to the collective, this can be in the creative field. You can start to see a change positively in this, and you could gain a following from what you are releasing out into the world. So this is a very public Uranus in Gemini transit for Leos, and it's all about your connections, and some of these breakthroughs could come through people that you know. So this is a fabulous time for you to connect with others over the next 7 years. Virgo rising and sun, your career is in the forefront during Uranus in Gemini. So your public voice is awakening, Virgo, and your career, your public persona, how you show up in your profession, how you show up in the public is undergoing a major reinvention. So you may get canceled by the old world that you've worked in and been in and be reborn in a completely new and innovative realm. And some of you could become a public speaker and do something publicly that you never thought you could do before. Some of you may completely radicalize your life path and completely change the direction of where your life is going. So dropping one old public work for something completely new so that you show up in the public sphere completely different. So get ready for career reinvention, Virgo. Libra rising and sun. This is a major transit of travel, higher learning, and some of you may be dealing with some legal matters during this 7-year transit. So the theme for you, Libra, is truths from above. So when we have Uranus in the 9th house in Gemini, this is challenging your belief systems and your religion or your philosophy. So you could be triggered to travel, or you may go through a personal revolution during your travels and seeing other cultures and learning different things. Some of you may be seeing what's going out in the world, and it can completely change your view on the world and want to get more involved in how you can innovate and change things instead of everything going down the path it is across the world. This is a big transit for travel. Some of you could completely change your belief system, your religion. Some of you could come out more publicly with these changes of beliefs, and also legal matters could be a big focus for some of you Libras. So you could be in court for something specific. You could be dealing with the court system internationally for some of you, or entering into more of a teaching role. So this is a big public transit for you to completely learn and deconstruct the beliefs that you thought made sense to you from childhood and even past life. Scorpio rising and sun. Get ready for some changes. Isn't that aligned? Ooh, Scorpio. Get ready for some changes in your 8th house. So this has to do with shared income, inheritances, debts, loans. Some of you may be dealing with deaths and changes around intimacy. So this theme is a revolution in finances. So old contracts are going to transform surrounding money and finances. Some of you could actually receive some financial help in what you want to do, in how you want to navigate the world. Of course, with everything, you need money to do it. So some of you could receive some loans, or some of you could receive some help. Some of you could receive a higher paying opportunity and a transformation of contracts that you once had into something that is more aligned for you. So now this is a shift in power dynamics. If any of you share money with a partner, there's going to be some changes involving that. And this is also going to liberate you from negative thoughts and teach you how to financially hack and be more stable instead of having to deal with that instability. So even though Uranus can bring some instability, this is actually forming a trine to Pluto and Aquarius. So this change is going to completely revolutionize how you are making money as well, and how any partner in your life, or you only, how you are receiving finances. So get ready for a complete revolution. Some of you could invest more in alternative investments like crypto. Some of you could finally decide to put more of your time and your energy into something that is philanthropic or transformative to the collective. Remember, this is Uranus. This is all about revolutionizing old structures. So get ready for some new financial structure, Scorpio. For my Sagittarius rising and suns, this is all about your 7th house of relationships, marriage, agreements, open enemies, and adversaries. So get ready for a relationship revolt, Sagittarius. And I don't want to get you concerned, but this is definitely a transit to watch in the realm of your relationships. So your partnerships will demand freedom. So non-traditional relationships will flourish during this time. And I mean, that's common for you, Sagittarius, but you know, y'all and being able to commit, it can be challenging for your zodiac sign, but in a way because you value freedom. So Uranus is coming along to shake that up and have you questioning how you are showing up in your relationships. And if it doesn't stimulate your mind or your intellect, or you feel like you're you're needing that energy to kind of move on, this could happen during Uranus in the 7th house. So something to watch out for. Also, not only is this love agreements, but this is also enemies and adversaries. So some of you could experience some conflict around significant relationships, and some of you also could be going through some changes in work relationships. So that's 7th house as well. So there may be more of a non-traditional contract or business opportunity that comes into your life that you're going to have to really adjust to, because it's a complete change from what you've worked with before. So get ready for a complete shakeup in your relationships, Sagittarius. Capricorn rising and sun, your work, your health, and your daily routine are going through a major shakeup during Uranus in Gemini. So the theme for you is radical rituals. So your daily life, your work, your health, how you serve others is going to get completely reprogrammed during Uranus in Gemini. So some of you may have to seek some new tech in your wellness, or go through a certain procedure that is completely different from the norm, or something new or technologically innovative. That can happen with Uranus in the 6th. Some of you could take on some new work roles. So you may take on something new that has a completely different schedule than other people's, a schedule that you haven't had before. You may also deal with burnout. So when we have Uranus in the 6th house, you finally wake up to the fact that you may be burnt out or feeling limited in your current role, because the 6th house isn't really being a boss. It's working for someone. It's service oriented. So you could have a complete change in wanting to be in those types of roles and change your mindset around whether you want to work for others or own your own business. So some of you could become more entrepreneurial with Uranus in the 6th house. So get ready for some change in your work life, Capricorn. And y'all are hard workers, and you just got out of Pluto in Capricorn last year for the last time. So I think y'all deserve to now work on your mental health and your physical health. Aquarius rising and sun, this is going to activate your 5th house of romance, children, and fertility. So the theme for you is creative rebellion. This is also the area of self-expression, creativity, creative projects. So all of this area of life for you, Aquarius, is going to experience upheaval. So some of you could be releasing a new, innovative, out there, different project. This could be a creative project you've been working on for some time, and this Uranus and Gemini transit is going to trigger you to release it. Some of you and your creative vision could be going through a complete upheaval, and sometimes you can have an awakening to something new that you want to do, or how you want to experiment or express yourself. When it comes to pleasure and love affairs, some of you could go through some changes in what you desire in that area of your life. Aquarians, you are also ruled by Uranus. So Uranus, as your ruling planet, the transits affect you. So I would say, other than Gemini, you are the second in line to feel this ingress into Uranus and Gemini the most. So get ready for change in how you navigate love affairs. Some of you may decide, a certain structure of that area of life is no longer in alignment. Some of you could come out of the closet, literally. This is Uranus, right? Uranus is all about changing the status quo. So some of you are changing the status quo in the way that you pursue love affairs. And then children is in this area of life. So if you have children, you could be going through a very shocking 7 years. Maybe they're going to go through sudden changes, shifts in their own lives, and that's what that means. And then some of you, fertility could also be a major issue. Uranus represents alternative ways of doing something. So some of you may go through something like IVF, or maybe decide that it's not for you at all. So this is a major transit where you're going to completely revolutionize and change the way that you feel about that area of your life. So another thing as well, fifth house rules speculative investments, Aquarians. So if any of you have wanted to completely change what you're investing your money in, some of you could invest in something different like digital currency, crypto. Completely shaking up your portfolio is another big part of Uranus in the fifth. And this is also like sudden strikes of luck. So obviously everyone have control with gambling. This is fifth house is gambling, but with Uranus in the fifth, it may be good to try your luck from time to time because you can have some sudden strokes of luck with this transit. All right. Now, last but not least, my Pisces risings and suns. This is activating your fourth house of home and family. So the theme for you is liberation at home. So home and ancestry and your emotional safety, what you need to feel secure is completely being rewired. So the relationship with family members may radically shift. You may go through some losses of certain family members, or you may go through some changes in where you live. It could be sudden. Some of you may feel like you have to pack up suddenly and leave a certain place, which isn't the best, but I think for this transit, it's going to be positive for you to move. You might also become more nomadic or downsize. Some of you could live off grid, build alternative homes, and some of you could invest in different types of homes, like investing in like some sort of group investment. Like you go in on certain investment with 10 people and it's like a community driven investment. It's very Uranus in the fourth house. And some of you also could experience some accidents at home. So it's very important to be careful when Uranus is transiting through your fourth house. This is sudden events, shocking events. So be very careful. Gemini also is associated with the lungs. So any of you Pisces risings especially, check your house air quality, check for molds, check for things that could affect the lungs, because that could come across sometimes for Uranus in the fourth for you guys. But this also could mean completely demolishing and changing the structure of your home, relocating, renovating, and making it something that's more authentic to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Uranus in Gemini and the radical transformations it will bring to our lives and all of us as a collective. As we stand on the edge of this new era, remember that this disruption isn't here to destroy you. It's here to liberate your mind, break outdated patterns, and awaken the truth you carry within. So if today's episode sparks something within you, you are not alone. We are all collectively going through this transit, and I would love for you to please subscribe, rate, and share the Black Moon Lilith Rising podcast with anyone you feel is ready to embrace my cosmic revolution. And you can also connect with me on Instagram and explore my book, Black Moon Lilith Rising, and the Black Moon Lilith Cosmic Alchemy Oracle card deck. Stay tuned for the next episode, and thank you for watching and listening.